نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So far we discussed, the last thing we discussed is what is the qawma, and the qawma refers to what? Standing up after ruku. And we said that the preferred opinion in the Hanafi madhab is that the qawma is wajib, right? So if a person leaves out the qawma unintentionally, he can compensate for it by making sajda sahu, right? And if he leaves it out intentionally, he has to repeat the salah in that time, right? Are you guys with me? Then we discuss also that the jalsa sitting between the two sajdas, right? That is also wajib. But at least to lift up your head and separate and make the sajdas two, that is faras, because if you remain in sajda, there will only be one sajda, right? Right. That was we discussed. Now the next thing we discuss is going down into after you finish the wajib qawma. The next is to go down into sajda. So the simple principle is here with regards to going down to sajda, that portion which is closest to the ground must touch the ground first. So how will you go down into sajda, Yusuf? Huh? Your knees will go first because that is closest. And then what will go next? Your hands will go next. Then you put your hands down, and then last you will go your face, nose, head. The details is coming now, right? So first your knees must touch. Then after your knees, you'll place your hands down on the ground. And after you place your hands down, then you will place your head between. Right? Is that clear? So that's basically just simple. Now let's look at the lesson, inshallah. As I told you, we're going to discuss here. We'll do first the in the kitab according to how the men must do it. And if it's not mentioned in the kitab how the ladies must do it, then we will discuss that as well, inshallah. Bismillah, tafaddal. Read, Bismillah. Yeah. لأن وائل بن حجر صلى الله عليه وسلم Okay, so وَيَعْتَمِدُ بِيَدَيْهِ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ, like I told you before, just now, that what is right closest to the ground will first go on the ground. So first your knees will go down, right? Then وَيَعْتَمِدُ بِيَدَيْهِ, then he will place his two hands on the ground, right? All right. We said don't worry, inshallah, we'll point out to you the differences between the man's sajda and the lady's sajda, but until here it's still the same, right? So why must he push his hands on the ground? لأن وائل بن حجر, because وائل بن حجر وصف صلاة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. There's a riwayat in which he explained the salat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the riwayat goes like this here. وَالدَّهَمَ عَلَى رَاحَتَيْهِ, he took support with his two palms, right? وَرَفَأَ أَجِيزَتَهُ, and he raised his buttocks, right? Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. وَوَضَعَ وَجْهَهُ بَيْنَ كَفَّيْهِ, and he placed his face between his palms, right? Follow nicely. وَيَدَيْهِ حِذَاءَ أُذُنَيْهِ. Again, I told you, this is for the men so far. We'll explain the ladies once, right? وَيَدَيْهِ حِذَاءَ أُذُنَيْهِ, and the hands in line with the ears. So when your hands are on the ground, right? So more or less, your earlobes will be in line with what? With your thumbs, and then also is mentioned, this will come on later, if you are reading alone namaz, you will open your arms a little bit. Not for the ladies, obviously, as I said, we'll mention more details about the ladies. It is mentioned in the riwayat that when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam makes sajda, he was the imam, you could actually see the whiteness under his arms, right? So, بَيْنَ كَفَيْهِ وَيَدَيْهِ ذَا أُذُنَيْهِ. And what's the proof for this? لما روي, it has been narrated أنه عليه السلام صلى الله عليه وسلم فعل ذلك, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam made sajda in this particular manner. Right. Carry on, read from the Yusuf. Right. So the correct full sajda is this. So we told you, first your knees will go down, then your hands will go down, then your face, your head will be placed between your two hands, right? So, وَسَجَدَ عَلَى أَنْفِهِ وَجَبْهَتِهِ. You will make sajda on your nose and upon your forehead. So both must touch the ground. This is the full sajda. The full sajda is what? That the nose and the forehead must touch the ground. You must make a point of ensuring, this is for both the men and the ladies, right? Make a point of ensuring that the nose and the forehead, right? What's the proof for that? Right. What's the proof? The anna Nabiya sallallahu wadaba. When Nabi sallallahu done something continuously, right, without defaulting, then that is a sign that shows that it is either wajib or it is sunnate muakkada as the minimum. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam always makes sajda in such a manner that both his forehead and his nose. So sometimes some people are very negligent about this. This is something that you need to pay attention to. Sometimes some people, just out of laziness or tardiness, for example, they only place their forehead and they raise their nose. Maybe the nose is too big sometimes, whatever. But you must make sure that this is the full sajda. Right? Now, if he what you said the right word, I'm looking for the word, you only suffices on one of the two, you only make on the forehead or you only make on the nose, etc. That is coming now. Read again. All the af'al are amratul wasl except the af'ala yufidu skin. So فَإِنِ اقْتَصَرَ على أحدهما جاز عند أبي حنيفة. So as Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala says, if he suffices upon one, that means he either makes sajda on only his head or he makes sajda on only his nose, then the farziyat of sajda is done. The farziyat, technically speaking, his sajda will be done. فإن اقتصر على أحدهما jaza, it is permissible. Maybe it is not being done in the full sunnat way, but his sajda is done. فإن اقتصر على أحدهما جاز عند أبي حنيفة رحمه الله تعالى, right? So just follow nicely there. Just follow. I want you to follow that nicely. I told you some people are negligent about this. Sometimes you find yourself, also you're making sajda, but you are too lazy to also press your nose down. You're only making on the forehead, right? So Imam Hanifa says either the nose or on the forehead, any one of the two, the sajda is done, right? Right. So, Sahibain, Imam Abu Yusuf, Imam Muhammad says that if you got a valid excuse not to make sajda on the forehead, maybe there's a wound on your forehead, Allah Ta'ala protect you, had an operation, you had a sore, whatever, you got a valid excuse, and then you only make on the nose, then it is acceptable. But without a valid excuse, to suffice on the nose alone is not right. See that? وَقَالَ لَا يَجُوزُ الْإِقْتِصَارُ. They too say لا يجوز الاقتصار على الأنف, that to suffice upon the nose alone, right, is not permissible إلا من عذر, except, yes, when you got a valid excuse, then you can do that, right? Carry on. And this is also a narration from Imam Abu Hanifa. So there is one narration from Imam Hanifa that says that, look here, if you got no valid excuse, you cannot suffice on the nose alone, right? Right. So what is the proof of Sahibain to say that, look here, you have to make on the forehead unless you got excuse? I repeat, you have to make on the forehead unless you have an excuse. They use this hadith in which Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Umirtu an asjuda ala sab'ati a'zumin wa adda minha al-jabhata." Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I have been commanded that I must make sajda upon sab'ati a'zumin, on 7 bones." You can translate bones here, right? وَعَدَّ مِنْهَا الْجَبْهَةَ, and he's counted the forehead from amongst them. So this shows you that sajda has to be done upon the forehead. If you leave out the forehead without any valid excuse, then what happens? It's not permissible, right? So that is now, just remember, that is Sahibain's proof to say that you cannot leave the forehead out without the valid excuse. Carry on. Yeah. See, so Imam Hanifa, this is first his naqli dalil. What is this? Sorry, his aqli dalil. First, he just gives a logical. He says, look, Allah Ta'ala says, make sajda, right? The Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, make sajda. And Allah Ta'ala don't say make sajda upon your forehead and make sajda upon your nose. Allah Ta'ala just said, place your head on the ground. So, whether you place the forehead or the nose, whichever way you do it, you will still be making sajda. You will still be making sajda. See there. Wali Abi Hanifata, right now, for what is Imam Hanifa's proof is, Anna sujuda, the sajda, yatahaqqaqu. It is established biwada'il wajhi, by the placing of the face, right? وَهُوَ الْمَعْمُورُ بِهِ, and that is what we've commanded, that place the face, right? Carry on. What is in your kitab there? بوضع بعض الوجه. Okay, that makes more sense. So يتحقق, so he's saying you must make sajda, and sajda doesn't mean you must place the whole face. Why? Because it's not possible to place the whole face. Look here, how many components in your face? You've got the forehead, you've got the nose, you've got the chin, you've got cheeks, you got what is it called here? This here, this bone here, what you call this? Cheekbone. You got a cheekbone, you got eyes, etc. So the first point is making here, sajda means to place a portion of your face on the ground. It's not your whole face, because logically speaking, it is not possible to place the whole face, right? So you must place a portion, right? That's why the first point is making. See, anna sujuda yatahaqqaqu, the sajda yatahaqqaq, it takes place biwad'i ba'd al-wajhi, by placing a portion of the face, right? وَالْمَعْمُورُ بِهِ, and that is what has been commanded. Now, after you establish this here, that you must place a portion, which portion is it? I say, look, إِلَّا أَنَّ الْخَدَّ, look here, your cheeks is not possible. If you'll have to maybe turn your face to the side like this, right? So we know that the cheeks are excluded, right? وَالذَّقَنَ, you got dhaqana or dhikna? And we know your chin is not right. Kharijun bil ijma'. There's ijma' amongst all the ulama. It cannot refer to this, right? Right. So wal madhkuru fima ruwiya al-wad. So this shows you here. This till here, till that portion is a Aqli dalil. Look here, you are not required to put your whole face on the ground because it's not even possible. You're only required to put a portion. So if you put a portion which is the forehead, or you put a portion which is nose, then you are practicing upon the verse. It says you must put a portion of your head on the ground. You understood that? Because he's breaking it down. He's saying, look here, it's not possible to put your whole face because there's no way you can put your cheeks or your chin, or you could do it, but no ulama said you have to do it like that. Right? So this ijma is not the whole face. So when this ijma is not the whole face, that means you must only put a portion. So why you want to add on and say it must be both the forehead and the nose? Just keep it to that portion. You understood that? So that is what we say the naqli dalil, the logical proof. Then he's going to give the naqli dalil. What is the naqli dalil? He says, yes, you did quote this hadith here, Sahibain, which says, Umirtu an asjuda ala sab'ati a'zumin, that I've been commanded to make sajda upon 7 bones. But if you look at the more famous hadith that I mentioned, it is more general. There it just says, make sajda upon your face. It doesn't say your forehead. So, if you practice upon that hadith, by just putting your nose or by putting your head, you are making amal on the hadith which says make sajda upon your face. See there. وَالْمَذْكُورُ فِي مَا رُوِيَ الْوَجْهُ, that which is mentioned, right? وَالْمَذْكُورُ فِي, in what is narrated about the wajh, فِي الْمَشْهُورِ, right? It is in the more famous hadith. So the more famous hadith only speaks about wajah, not about forehead. So whether you make only upon the head or whether you make only upon the nose, you are making amal upon the famous hadith. So why use a less famous hadith to restrict us to say that no, if you made only on the nose without any valid excuse, then it is not done, right? Yeah. So now, to place your, so say for instance a person made sajda, just hypothetically like this, only on his knees, and he put his head down. Then according to Imam Hanifa, even if he put his knees and he put his nose, is it possible? Can you do it? You just put your knees and you put your nose down. You don't put your feet down and you don't put your hands down. Then technically speaking, according to Imam Hanifa, the fardh is done. Understood it? See there. To place the hands, like I told you, your hands, we told you the proper way is for the men. We'll discuss the ladies, don't worry, that you got your earlobes in line with your thumbs, right? And if you are munfarid, you're reading the namaz on your own, or you're the imam, then you must open your arms up, right? So that is وَوَضْعُ الْيَدَيْنِ وَالرُّكْبَتَيْنِ سُنَّةٌ إِنْدَنَا لِتَحَقُّقِ السُّجُودِ بِدُونِهِمَا. So to place your hands on the ground, وَالرُّكْبَتَيْنِ, and to place your knees is sunnat. I spelled it wrong, I said feet, but actually I slip up, sorry about that. Freudian slip. So وَوَضْعُ الْيَدَيْنِ وَالرُّكْبَتَيْنِ. So to place your hands and your knees is sunnat. So if a person had to, like how I told you, you do like how, like you do a press up where your feet is on the ground, right? And your knees are not on the ground, right? So if your knees were not on the ground, then technically speaking, according to Imam Hanifa, the fardh of your sajda is still done, right? وَوَضْعُ الْيَدَيْنِ وَرُكْبَتَيْنِ سُنَّةٌ إِنَّنَا. Why? لِتَحَقُّقِ السُّجُودِ بِدُونِهِمَا. Because sajda can't take place without that. The main thing is, right, is that what? That either your forehead or your nose must touch. Then, وَوَضْعُ الْقَدَمَيْنِ, as for with regards to the feet, right? فَقَدْ ذَكَرَ الْقُدُورِيُّ أنه فريضة في السجد في السجود. As Imam Quduri rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions that this is also from amongst the faraiz of sajda. So see, just to recap what we've discussed. The feet on the ground is faraz. Right. According to Imam Hanifa, the hands is sunnat. The knees is sunnat. And then either the nose or the forehead is faraz according to Imam Hanifa, one of the two. According to Sahibain, no, the forehead is faraz. The forehead is faraz. The forehead is faraz only in the presence of a valid excuse can you suffice on the nose. All right. Okay, the next is a new discussion coming up there. We'll discuss that tomorrow, inshallah. Stop there. بس سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك الله ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم تب علينا يا مولانا إنك التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون الله تعالى يكسب إن شاء الله.